Hello and welcome to episode 208 of Level Up Your Career, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. I'm Shanice Mitchell-Cox and I am your host for today. If you are watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do in our channel. So please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel to find out more about us. Ella is in the social chat, so please let her know your name and the city where you are joining from. She will post a link to vote up the questions that you would like answered the most, and of course, for you to add your own. If your question is selected, your name will appear in the credits, so stay with us to see that happen. Crafting an authentic leadership style is like mapping out a unique path for personal and professional success in our fast-paced world. It serves as a guiding principle, emphasizing genuine connections, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to the core values. Having an authentic leadership style harnesses trust, it fosters collaboration, and creates a resilient professional environment. So, to help us uncover the secrets of developing an authentic leadership style is our fantastic panelists. So please, let's jump in and meet them. Introducing our first panelist for today is Robert Snyder. Robert's 30-year career included roles as a developer, a database administrator, a project manager, a change manager, and sales enablement. He has earned PMP and Agile certifications and is currently a solopreneur formulating and proposing what should combat VUCA and succeed in a software-centric hybrid methodologies. It's always such a pleasure to have you on the show, Robert. Welcome back to Level Up.
Thank you, Shanice. It's great to be here, and I'm delighted to see my fellow panelists again.
It's a great panel today. So let's do the introductions for everyone else, but thanks for joining us. And I am honoured to welcome back Ket Patel. Ket is an accredited Change Management Institute master practitioner and has over 20 years' experience across private and public sector organisations. He specialises in target operating model design, process improvement, and service design initiatives, driven by leveraging new technologies whilst keeping a focus on actions that support the people impacted. He's a passionate educator and advocate for change practice. Thanks for joining us today, Ket.
Thanks a lot for having me back.
It's lovely to see you again. And I am delighted to introduce Eileen Roden. Eileen is an accomplished PMO professional, consultant, and co-founder of the House of PMO and consulting director at PMO Learning. She brings her experience as practitioner and trainer to everything that she does. It's wonderful to see you again, Eileen.
Thanks, Shanice. Great to be here. And as always, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the other panelists when we say we learn as much as we contribute to these sessions. So I'm learning to pick up some extra bits on authentic leadership today.
Me too. And I am delighted to welcome back Mart Rovers. Mart is a trainer, coach, consultant, and president at INTERPROM. Mart specialises in business relationship management, service management, information security management, and project and change management. Welcome back to Level Up, Mart. It's always so lovely to have you back on the panel.
Thanks, Shanice. Thank you, APMG, for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to give my little 2 cents of what authentic leadership is all about. I found actually a great quote from Michael Holland. I think he sets the stage very well. He says, authentic leadership is revealed in the alignment of what you think, what you say, and what you do.
Oh, that's a great quote. Thank you, Mart. I always love your quotes, so thank you. And wrapping up our incredible panel today is Laurie Bowman. Laurie has 30 years of experience in engineering and management across multidisciplinary complex projects. Laurie is a trainer and advisor on planning, assurance, risk management, and control for projects, programs, and portfolios. Thanks for coming back to Level Up, Laurie. It's great to have you back again.
Yeah, really good to be here. Thank you, Shanice, and welcome fellow panelists and listeners. I look forward to today's session.
And Level Up Your Career would not be Level Up without our fantastic question master. And today, our question master is Adriana Santana, who joins us from the incredible city of London. How are you today, Adriana?
Hi, I'm really good. It's pretty sunny right now, but it was snowing in like some other parts of London like a few hours ago. So yeah, it's really cold, but I'm really excited to be here today.
Good. I'm so glad you're good today. And can we take our first question, please?
Of course. So our first question comes from Stuart in Berlin. He wants to know, what is authentic leadership and why does it matter?
Oh, what a great question, Stuart. And I'm sure we're going to get some great answers for you. We will start with Ket and then we'll move on to Robert.
Hey, I really like this question as well, because when I looked at the topic, the idea of how to develop authentic leadership, it kind of just fried my brain for a moment. So authentic leadership, like I think of the word authentic, what does it mean when we think of the word authentic? It's we believe what is being offered to us, whether it's a product, a service, whatever. Is it authentic? Does it meet up with the expectations we have of it? And so I think I extend that thinking to what is authentic leadership. When I look at an individual I'm looking to guide me, support me in my organization, do I trust and buy into everything that they talk about? And does it live up to my expectations that they've set by the way they act? So for me, authenticity is really about that trust factor of how I work with someone and what they say and do. And do I always get that? Does it meet my expectations? So I find that's a really easy way for me to kind of think about whether something is authentic or not.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Robert?
The first words that come to my mind are other-centric. If I'm in a place of healthy, authentic leadership, I feel like I no longer need to worry about myself, my job security, my reputation, and I can really focus on others around me, their contribution, their value, their experience. And this matters because leadership has a large, I'll call it a blast radius. If a follower has issues, the blast radius is small. When a leader is not performing or fulfilling their role, the blast radius compounds and it really hurts quality of life and standard of living. So authentic leadership matters because great leaders raise quality of life and standard of living.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And Laurie?
I agree with what everyone has said, and in particular what Mart said during the introduction. It really is about that consistency between the thoughts, the words, and the behaviour. And I think when you get that, you tend to get a resonance. Just like in music, you might hear a really clear note. When you don't have that authenticity, it's more like white noise. There's inconsistency. It's a little bit more difficult to make sense out of the signal you're receiving from somebody. So it's really having that consistency. When you see that consistency between the behaviour, particularly over a long term, between what's being spoken, what the values are, I think that authenticity really shines out, and it has a very motivating effect on people around them. So once you get that sort of resonance and consistency, it tends to bring people along with them naturally.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Mart?
Yeah, I'd like to throw in the word being balanced, right? Focusing on that part of being authentic, being balanced with yourself, with the environment, the world around you, meaning also that you're transparent and genuine and honest. Somebody who's therefore also able to inspire because of that type of behavior, inspiring trust and fostering a great work environment. But again, it all comes back to that word balance. So I'd like to emphasize that again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mart. And Eileen, would you like to finish us off on this question?
It's always difficult to finish when there's been such a talented panel go ahead. But I think for me, it's about alignment. And it does go back to the quote that Mart had right at the very beginning of that about, often when you cut somebody open, you'll see some different layers and, they're different people in different circumstances. And to me, authenticity is about the same. Well, you could cut somebody open and actually you would see what they're saying. You would see, kind of how they're behaving is all absolutely in and alignment. And the important thing about that is it actually kind of builds trust from people who you work with and people who you interact with, because they don't have to worry about, are you putting a face on, are you trying to play a particular persona. They know that they can trust what you're saying because it's what you believe and what you will carry on through.
Absolutely. These have been great answers. Thank you so much, panel. Adriana, can we take our next question, please?
Of course. Our next question comes from Ilona. She wants to know, in the context of authenticity and vulnerability, what are your biggest challenges and opportunities it presents in your leadership on a daily basis?
Oh, this is a great question. Eileen, we'll start with you.
The fact that we're all human. And so, you know, with authentic leadership, and it was mentioned before about this kind of balanced processing, and trying to do the right thing all of the time. And sometimes we struggle ourselves to keep our emotions in check because things are impacting us as well. And so it's a constant learning and a constant self-development to get better at, in difficult situations, to keep our own emotions in check so we can behave in a balanced and authentic manner and do the right thing, not just for us, but for those who we're working with and leading.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Kat?
Yeah, I think I can't echo Eileen's thoughts even more. I mean, the work probably many of us are doing is helping others navigate changes. That's certainly my day to day, right? And I think of myself as being authentic to the point of, like, it's not about me, it's about the environment I create that enables others to be successful. But then that does challenge, am I always doing that? So there's a lot of self-reflection that's required to sort of hold yourself true to whether you're being authentic or not. And that actually sometimes means some parts of you that you may not want to display or you don't think are appropriate, you need to be aware of them. And so I think, just reinforcing Eileen's point, right, being aware of our own emotional reactions and being conscious of them and reflecting on them and considering what we do next as a result is really important to kind of really show actually that vulnerability as well as developing that kind of authenticity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Laurie?
Yeah, once again, I agree. Don't mean to be too boring, but I agree with everyone else. I would add the real power with that authenticity, particularly the vulnerability, is that when you do that, you're actually creating a safe space for those around you. So when you're able to be vulnerable, firstly, it's a healthy thing. It's a good signal that you are authentic, but you're creating psychological safety for the team around you when they understand, it's okay, particularly if you're a leader or something like that and you're able to exchange stories like that. And that can have a very powerful effect on a team and help other team members to also feel more included, to feel more authentic, to feel safer, to not be perfect all the time and that sort of thing. So certainly a huge opportunity. Maybe in terms of challenges, maybe there's some challenges if you haven't got a great culture that you won't be supported if you're being too vulnerable. That's probably a good signal to get anyway, because it's probably a sign that you're in the wrong organisation or the wrong team. But certainly, plenty of benefits from authenticity and vulnerability.
Absolutely. A safe space is so important for a team. So thank you so much. That was a great answer. And Robert?
In the last few years in leading teams, my biggest challenge has been converting competitive behavior into ambitious behavior, because let's acknowledge our competitive nature as human beings. But when hyper competition gets so intense, it borders on predatory. And I believe that good leaders minimize predatory behavior in their teams and really work to convert our competitive nature into being ambitious on behalf of the team, on behalf of our customer. But there's an important difference between competition and ambition. And this is where that magic E word comes in, empathy. It's a challenge when team members have low empathy, and we need to create structures, practices, habits, and language in our teams to maximize empathetic behavior, to minimize the challenges, the friction, the noise within our teams.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Mart, would you like to answer this question too?
to build on the word empathy that was just mentioned by Robert, indeed, the authenticity again goes back to also knowing yourself. And I think that's the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity. Do you know yourself? For example, if you're in a room and people start talking and certain words are being used to trigger you, or certain behaviors are being portrayed that rub you the wrong way, how do you know that this is rubbing you the wrong way at that moment? And what is it triggering? And what is the result of that? I mean, are you therefore responding in a certain way? In other words, do you know yourself? What are these influences that come at you? And then how do you portray yourself because of all that? That's part of that being authentic and just being yourself. It doesn't mean you have to start becoming angry or express as in maybe this person is using this word because of this person is going through something that's maybe bothering this person. Who knows? But that's an empathy part, as in position yourself in that other person's mind, what's going on. And maybe that's the reason this person is using that word that rubbed you the wrong way. In other words, that's all part of that being authentic, having that level of empathy, and then of course you respond in the leadership fashion, as in what is it that this person is going through? How do I respond in a certain way so it is uplifting and not becoming negative environments or hostile environments? Still having that safe environment, even though a word was chosen or a behavior was portrayed that didn't quite fit at that time.
Absolutely. You never know what anyone's going through. So it's always important to create a safe space so that they feel comfortable to share those thoughts with you. So fantastic answers, panel. This has been a great, great question. Thank you. And Adriana, should we take our next question?
Of course. Our next question comes from Becky Davis. And Becky wants to know, is self-discipline required to become an authentic leader? I struggle to command respect, and my colleague advice self-discipline will help with this.
Oh, what a great question, Becky. We'll start with Laurie on this question.
Thank you, Becky. This is a really interesting question. And I think my answer might be a little bit controversial, but I would suggest that self-discipline is actually helpful before you know yourself, before you fully understand yourself. So early in your career, when you're at school, for example, having self-discipline is very helpful because it can give you structure. It can encourage you to do things when maybe left to your own devices, you wouldn't be quite sure. So it can certainly help you to become productive in your early years, in your early career, help you to understand yourself a little bit better. But what I would suggest is that when you truly understand yourself, actually self-discipline discipline is a constraint, because you'll actually find yourself, you'll actually resonate, you'll be naturally inspired. You won't require that sort of, that discipline or somebody telling you or an alarm clock. You'll naturally wake up and be completely motivated. So if you can recognise the usefulness of things like discipline to help you get through things that you may not be naturally inspired by, which may not be your true authenticity, but when you find yourself completely motivated, completely inspired to do something, that's when you know that you are being an authentic leader. You are doing something that deeply resonates from within, that you don't require discipline or external motivation for. Great question. Thank you.
Great answer. Yeah, what a great answer. Thank you so much. And Robert, if you'd like to jump in now.
Great question, Becky. My answer is a strong yes. I absolutely believe that in order to be a good example for others, you must demonstrate it yourself. I think it's difficult to lead with legitimacy if you don't hold the bar high for yourself before you hold a bar high for others. And any opportunity I can to inject the topic of dance, I'll do that, and I'll do that here. If I'm on the dance floor and I'm leading someone on the dance floor, I need to make sure that my mechanics, my hygiene, everything I'm doing is solid and has integrity, that qualifies me to lead someone on the dance floor. But we can't be a great ensemble or duo unless I have my stuff together first with credibility, integrity, and benevolence toward my partner. So back to your question, absolutely. Manage yourself before you try to manage or lead others.
Fantastic answer. Thank you so much. And Eileen?
I think the difficulty is that interesting in terms of the word about kind of commanding respect. I think it's hard to try to keep doing things to kind of get respect, and I think the focus actually has to be on yourself, and then the respect will come. And I would say there's kind of two elements to that. So firstly, you have to be able to forgive yourself when things don't go well and you sometimes mess up. Being a brilliant, authentic leader, you're not going to achieve it every day, but you can do that honestly and openly. And you can, as I say, be open and say, perhaps I wasn't brilliant yesterday, or I did something yesterday which wasn't really what perhaps would have been ideal in the situation, but I'm going to learn from that. And so it's that keep showing up. Which is part of that self-discipline and keep wanting to try. But to me, it's not about trying to be a better me, a better leader on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Kat?
Yeah. I mean, the self-discipline piece, I think, for me is an interesting angle. I think, how can you be vulnerable if you're trying to be disciplined about the way you conduct yourself all the time? So I think it's an important aspect, as the other panelists have suggested, but I think Eileen's point is really crucial, that the discipline element is about wanting to get better, not necessarily being the same thing people get each time. And so I think for me, I'm really curious to Becky's challenge and why people might advise self-discipline will help command that respect. I think that's a really interesting response to getting that respect that you're craving or requiring. But yeah, for me, I find self-discipline is maybe double-edged in this scenario for the reasons I mentioned.
Absolutely. And with respect comes trust. You must have trust to build that respect. So great answer, Kat. Thank you so much. And Mart, would you like to finish us off on this question?
Just quickly, just a few more additional thoughts here. In addition to what already was said by the expert answer so far, is that one is to have an open mindset as far as always be willing to learn. In other words, being open-minded and be open to whatever is new and whatever is going on around you, and increase your self-awareness. Of course, we've already touched on that, but also assess your own values. What is it you prefer? What is your purpose? Your likes, your dislikes, and last but not least, of course, effective communication. Be a good listener, be a good observer. This, as far as knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, it's another part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Robert?
As I reflect more and more on this question, I'm reminded of what flight attendants tell us all the time. Before you help others with their oxygen masks, make sure yours is secured yourself, because when yours isn't, you're no help to anyone. So I think that's a lighthearted analogy, reminder about self-discipline.
Absolutely. A great reminder as well. Thank you so much. We're just going to take our next question. So Adriana, if we could have our next question, please.
Sure. I think our next question is very, very interesting, and it comes from Robert. How do you recognize or describe fake leadership?
Oh, this is a great question. So on the panel, who would like to answer this first? Let's go with Kat and then Laurie.
Fake leadership. I mean, my original opening, I kind of said, I see someone's behavior, it sets an expectation in my head, and then I observe the action, And so when my expectations don't meet the action, then to me, there's something in that that's fake. There's something that said, I would do this, but I ended up doing that. And there's no justification in my head and there's no discussion. So I think this is where I want to just bring in a point which others made it like authentic doesn't mean you're always this nice, happy person and you're always creating this right, nice environment. Authentic can be just who you are. You could be angry all the time. That could just be you. That's you being authentic. If you're angry and you respond, and I know that's how you're going to respond, unfortunately, that is your authentic leadership style. Now, is it getting you what you want? Now, that's a different question. So we can all be authentic, but it might not be nice for people. So as a leader, I know what and as an employee, I know what I'm expecting of people around me. Is it what I want? Is it what I was expecting to get? Yes or no? That tells me whether it's fake or authentic. Is it helping us achieve what we would like to do as a team and organization? That is a choice that you decide in your leadership style. So I think for me, it's really easy to tell people who are fake because their actions don't live up to their, the expectations they set of themselves through what they say and do. But I think this notion of authentic always being positive, I don't, that isn't the case in my opinion. We're all authentic pretty much every day we show up. The question is, does it get us what we want?
Absolutely. That's a great question to ask ourselves. So thank you, Kat. Laurie, do you want to jump into and answer this question?
Well, firstly, I agree with everything Kat said. He explained it extremely well. I guess to add on to that, I think one thing when you see a leader who's really authentic, when obstacles and challenges happen and disruptions happen, it doesn't bother them. They are so focused on their goal. They are so consistent. They're so focused on the goal that they just see these as opportunities, as obstacles, like a wall or something. Whereas when people are not authentic, or if a leader's not authentic, then sometimes the behaviour can be a little bit different and may suddenly go off kilter to the original vision or something like that. So I think when you have authentic leadership, their level of resilience and the ability to overcome obstacles stands them out significantly from a leader who may be less authentic. They tend to be less resilient, less able to deal with disruptions and obstacles as they come along the path.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laurie. Great answers. And Robert, would you like to answer this question?
I think it's helpful to give some labels to fake leadership. And what comes to my mind are words like narcissism, ego, right? When someone's conducting themselves with a little bit too much ego, you know that leadership is fading and it's not at the top of their priority list. I believe it's worthwhile to distinguish climbership from leadership. People who are in power are clearly great climbers. They're good at looking up the corporate ladder. Whether they're a good leader also, that is a separate question, but climbership and leadership are not the same thing. Bossiness is not the same thing as leadership. And just because someone has what I call a tsunami of opinions, again, that's not the same as leadership. So I just wanted to float those labels so we can give a name to more easily detect, recognize, pinpoint fake leadership.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Eileen, if you'd like to answer this question too.
So to me, going back to, building on some of the points that have been made in the previous questions, authentic leaders are not brilliant every day. Yes, they fail. And I think fake leadership is seen from individuals who cannot deal with their own failure because they don't own it. they don't recognize it, they don't discuss it, and they don't explain how they're going to continue to learn and develop from that. So sometimes it's quite difficult, when people are being very successful and are kind of seen to be out there and achieving. But when something doesn't go right or doesn't go wrong, they're not really authentic if they're actually if they can't own their mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And Mart?
Just one more quick thing. Fake leaders are those that you don't want to be hang out with, that you don't want to be around with. In other words, you don't want to spend time with them. You don't want to work for them. In other words, they're pretty lonely out there because their relationship network is pretty much non-existent. So, as an indicator, maybe that's the reason why they are considered fake leadership. There can be many other reasons, but this is definitely one of them that I want to highlight, the whole relationship aspect.
Absolutely. And I think as well, when you hear some leaders talk about other members of staff, I think that really highlights how they are as a leader, because if they are not saying a positive, even if it's a negative situation, if they're not reflecting themselves as a positive person, as a leader, when they're talking about other team members, how can you look up to somebody who's not talking about one of your colleagues in the correct way a leader should? So I think it's important about how you talk to others when you're a leader as well, and the way that you are handling those conversations, especially if it's a situation that's quite stressful. So yeah, great answers. And thanks for asking the question, Robert. It was very thought-provoking. Now, social, we can see you. We know you're watching. So please introduce yourselves, pop your name and where you're watching from in the comments, and we will do you a shout out on the show today. Adriana, if we could take our next question, please.
Of course, we're going to start taking live questions. And the first one comes from Ilona again. And she wants to know, how should an authentic leader accept and live with their shadow side?
Oh, this is a great question. And it's lovely to see you in the audience. Robert, we'll start with you, please.
That word shadow side, my interpretation of that is something you might be embarrassed about, you don't want to be transparent about. So it might be, in a team context, self-interest. You want that promotion, you want your way. And if someone has the humility and the self-awareness to distinguish, this is what is in my personal best interest, but something else might be in the best interest of the team, the company, the customer. I think that being able to distinguish both is at least a start to be at peace with a shadow side. But that's my initial interpretation of what Ilana might mean by shadow side.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Laurie?
Yes, thank you, Ilona, for the question. The way I interpret that is a little bit similar to what we mentioned earlier about being vulnerable. And I think it's really important for a vulnerable leader to completely own and love their strengths and weaknesses and their vulnerabilities, and to share that with the team. Firstly, from a functional perspective, it helps the team work better because the team understands where they can back up and support the leader better. But most importantly and most deeply, you create this safety where suddenly everyone feels, okay, I can let go of my ego. I don't have to be perfect. We're here to get a good outcome for the team. We can all be vulnerable. I'm safe here. People have got my back. We're going to look out for each other. But just by doing that, very, very powerful thing for a leader to do. So to love and completely own your strengths and weaknesses, your genius as well as your vulnerabilities, I think very, very powerful thing for an authentic leader to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Eileen?
So there is a model called the Johari window, which looks in 2 dimensions in terms of what you know about yourself and what others see in you. And the easiest bit is things you know about yourself and things other people see about you, because that's kind of quite easy hard for you to deny and easy for those to see. There's bits that you know about yourself that you choose not to share and you keep secret. There's also things people see about you that you don't see, which is kind of your blind sight, yes, and people can kind of figure that out. But then there's also this kind of this other quadrant of things that you haven't found out about yourself and other people haven't, because we've not necessarily kind of gone into that space, haven't been kind of driven into a particular situation. So whether that be your kind of your blind spot or this kind of this other dimension, there are things that you're going to come across where you look at yourself and think, I'm not sure I really like that about myself. I haven't taken time to kind of work that through. Or people will make observations about you that you haven't really kind of seen in yourself. And I think the way to kind of deal with that is to consistently ask for feedback, for asking people about, kind of, is there ways that I am addressing things that doesn't feel consistent with my kind of how I profess to be an authentic leader? Is there things that I need to continue to work on? And then actually kind of, again, going back to kind of owning that and kind of working with that and recognizing there within all of us, we've got that kind of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, recognizing that and learning. It goes back to kind of that kind of balance processing and kind of keeping our learning how to deal with our own emotions. And sometimes we have to deal with our own little devils inside.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Kat?
Yeah, I want to pick up on that point around asking for feedback, because I think it's actually an interesting aspect, because if we're asking people for feedback of things we are hoping they will kind of call out on us, they might not actually want to share it with us. They might be themselves afraid. So feedback doesn't, in my experience, always land you with those blind spots. But another way of what you might be referring to here as our darker side is, we are who we are, right? And it's in moments of stress and pressure, a lot of that will come out into ways we probably wouldn't have expected, because we're acting largely subconsciously. And it's after the fact, I think this is where resilience is also plays into it. After the fact, how much do we consider the outcome that was achieved and what role we played in it, including the reactions we had, and would we do something different next time? There's a whole cycle that takes a moment of, again, back to this word of self-reflection, but it starts with, did I get the outcome I expected when we were in that? If no, why? What role did I play in it? And the moment we start to ask that, we start to uncover for ourselves the darker side, and we could more directly ask for feedback around those. What role did I play? Why did my approach, my attitude, what I said, how did it help come to the conclusion that we ended up with? So I think there's a whole self-reflection piece for me is really crucial, but it starts with, did we get the outcome we expected to? And then there's the whole resilience side of it as well. But we're really tested under those stress points, right? That's when we really might unfortunately find our darker sides coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Mart?
Two things quickly to wrap it up is that authentic leadership means, and I mean, we all have darker sides, but being transparent is, again, what needs to be highlighted here. You may have a bad moment or a bad feeling at a certain point, and over time, we all learn how to read people, right? Because the majority of our communication is nonverbal, and we pick up on those things. But the same happens with the people around you. They learn how to read you, right? So be transparent and be open as far as what's going on. Or you had a bad morning, or your coffee didn't taste right, or And the other part is that I want to mention is that's acceptance, and to live at that darker or that shadow side. Find a coach or a mentor to work with who can help you with that.
Absolutely. I think a mentor is always a great resource to have, especially as a new junior leader. So yeah, great advice. And I think asking for help as well as a leader. I'm quite new to management, and there have been times where I've had to go to my team and ask them to help me for certain situations, whether it be a professional or a personal situation. And I think it just goes to show that we are all human. So thank you so much, panelists. That was great answers. Adriana, if we can take our next question, please.
Of course. We have another live question coming from Michelle Morgan, and she wants to know, what are some strategies for junior leaders to manage their relationship with more senior leaders? For example, managing up.
Oh, this is a great question, Michelle. Thank you so much for asking it. We'll start with Robert and then we'll go to Kat.
I'll share a few quick tools. Michelle, great. I love this question. The first tool I'd recommend is an individual weekly status report that just lists what are your work streams, what were the highlights from the past week, and what are your plans for the next week. It's a way to manage up without kissing up. Aligned with any of those work streams you're working on, to be able to assign a stoplight, red, yellow, green, to convey to your manager, here's where I assess the health of any of these. Next tool is, it's what I call I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. On a weekly basis, you don't have to finish those sentences every week, but every employee should really be thinking about those 4 sentences every week. I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. And I consider it a low footprint engagement survey. And the last tool I'll mention, I call a pie chart that conveys to your manager the share of your workload that is innovation versus operational burden that you might try to, streamline operations. And then finally, chaos. So every manager should be able to care about and manage and tame the chaos and be very mindful about the share of any of their employees' workloads among innovation, operations, and VUCA, also known as chaos.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Kat?
Yeah, thanks. And it is a really good question, particularly for the world I operate in, which is, as we've just spoken about, this balance of spending time between changing the way the organization operates and managing all the stuff that the operations do already. And that's quite a contentious period. So as a sort of change practitioner, you're often seeing the organization trying to change and stay the same with all the same resource and asking for more work. It's the thing I advise managers in that sort of stuck in the middle there is help your leadership make choices. So if you can't do it all, present what the options are and ask them with some recommendations, empower them. So we've got 3 options to try and do 2 bits of work. Option A, we do the first bit. Option B, we do a bit of both. Option C, we don't do either. My recommendation is option A. Which one would you like us to go with? It really helps empower not only yourself, because you're saying, look, I'm stuck here and I need you to help me choose. And secondarily, it gives them real clear direction as to what you need from them to support you in moving forward. And I think that relationship between you and the person you report to is all about how do you enable one another to succeed in an organization, right? The work you've got to do, and you'll always be asked to do more and more, and there's only a finite amount of time in the day. So some trade-offs have to be made, and managing up is crucial to that. It's really crucial.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And Laurie?
This is a great question, Michelle. So first of all, I'd say back yourself. As Robert mentioned, this VUCA world, the rate of change is increasing at an ever-increasing rate. And funnily enough, senior managers have probably not been exposed to the rate of change as much as junior managers. So certainly back yourself and be confident. I've learned so much from younger junior leaders, and I would even suggest in the last 5 years more from junior leaders than I have learned from senior leaders. So definitely back yourself and be confident in that engagement. Secondly, be mindful of the time. So generally speaking, more senior leaders are going to more likely to be quite time poor. So if you can prepare options, as Kat mentioned, also think of different communication styles. So it's fairly common, but not across the board, for more senior leaders to prefer visual type information. So think of dashboards. Try to understand where their risks or what their concerns are, what's keeping them up at night, and present and convey information in a way that answers or resolves those questions for them as best as possible, and hopefully in a communication style that makes sense for them. And generally speaking, visual dashboards and those types of ways of sharing information tend to be more suitable for the more senior managers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Eileen?
So I want to go back to a phrase that Robert used, which I'd never heard before, but I am going to steal now, which is manage up without kissing up. And I think when we're talking about leadership, senior doesn't necessarily mean a better leader. And so it's important that as you develop your own authentic leadership, that you demonstrate that with anybody and everybody you interact with, whether they be junior to you or senior to you. So kind of stay true to yourself when you're interacting with those senior leaders. And if they are good, authentic leaders themselves, they will see you first and foremost as a human being who has a contribution to play to the organization, and not necessarily see you your status within the hierarchy of the organization. So stay true and continue to practice your authentic leadership.
What a fantastic answer. Thank you so much. And Mart?
I'd say build partnerships with your leaders around you. Help them evolving the culture that they like to have in the organization. Drive value. In essence, for the junior leader, learn the organization, do your homework, get to know what's going on, how they work, how to communicate. In other words, become of value, because any leader looks for solutions. If you can present and help them with the solutions, that are benefiting anyone in the organization, that's what they're looking for. So those solutions can only be of value when you know the organization, what really works for the organization. So in other words, think in terms of solutions, present those.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, panelists. These have been great answers. And Michelle, we hope you've enjoyed those answers for your question. Adriana, if we could take our final question for today, please.
Of course, Shanice. So our final question comes from Dotun Brown. And the question is, what is the connection between emotional intelligence and cultural difference, and how can a leader engage them in agile teams, disparately located teams?
Ooh, this is an interesting question. We will go to Laurie for this question just quickly.
Okay, this is an interesting question. Thank you, Jason. I'm not sure that I fully understand it, but the bits that do make sense to me, I'll share my thoughts. So firstly, emotional intelligence is more about being sensitive and having empathy for the different people that you're engaging with, understanding that there might be a lot beneath the surface from the communication that presents itself when you're engaging with people, and the way that information you present may be received by others. So really being sensitive to that. Cultural difference is an interesting one. Obviously, this is a very complex area, but one really useful tool that I've found has helped me a lot is called the Hofstede's Index, I think it's called. And it basically looks at some of the attributes of different cultures around the world and rates them on a 6-point scale for different values that different countries tend to have. For example, the Western countries tend to be very short-term in orientation, whereas more Eastern countries tend to be very long-term in their thinking and their decision-making. And I find a simple tool like Hofstede's Index can be very helpful for helping me understand different behaviours. So I remember some time ago I had a friend in Malaysia, and we were planning to go to a conference in the US. And she happened to mention to me that the food at this conference was never vegetarian. It was always I don't know, what is it? Carnivore, whatever the opposite of vegetarian is. And she mentioned this to me, and I thought, well, that's outrageous. How can that happen? So I got straight onto the president of the association. I said, what's going on? We should have some vegetarians and some options. We should be more culturally sensitive to people with different cultural backgrounds. And this, my poor friend from Malaysia, she was outraged. She thought she couldn't believe that I'd gone straight to the president. And to me, I was thinking, it's just normal. What are you talking about? There was a problem. So I reached out, and on reflection, looking at Hofstede's Index, there's a dimension called the power distance dimension. And this is how comfortable we feel dealing with somebody who might be higher in the hierarchy or the pecking order. And interestingly, Australians have almost a score of 0 on power distance. We don't care. I'm very happy talking to the Prime Minister or somebody who might be living on the street, whereas this Malaysian lady, and it's quite common in Asia. They're very, very sensitive to the power distance. So obviously she felt very vulnerable. She felt that it was inappropriate that I'd gone straight to the president. So it was a really good practical learning experience for me, where I thought I was doing something completely reasonable and practical, but I'd terrified this poor lady who up until that moment had been looking very much forward to going to this conference. So certainly Hofstede's index, I think, nice, simple framework that can help take some of that complexity when dealing with multinational projects, multinational teams and so forth.
This has been a great example. Thank you so much, Laurie. And we've popped that link in the chat as well for the audience to have a look at Hofstede Index. And Ket, if you'd like to answer the question.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I didn't realise I was I was Australian, actually. It turns out I didn't realise that's why I've got a 0 index, because I'm Australian. I think the thing that's interesting for me in this question is sort of the bringing disparate teams together. And I think culturally, one of the things I found successful is to find some common ground, so find some fun activities, some ways to kind of have some commonality to what you're doing. So you start to build some bonds, that are beyond geography or culture. Because if we look at the differences, we kind of focus on the differences, but we can also look at what is the same. And I think it's important when we're bringing teams together in, different parts of the UK, even, let alone different countries. It's important to kind of understand what motivates us all, whether that's the organisation, whether it's something we all have in common. And I think that's actually part of the emotional intelligence, is to kind of think, well, we don't have to just think about differences. We can also think about things that join us or bind us together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a great answer. And Mart, if you would like to wrap us up on our final question, please.
Roden was asking about the connection. Well, there's a connection, obviously, and I'm going to pick on the self-awareness portion of emotional intelligence. As in, are you self-aware of how other cultures may influence you, or as far as the different behaviors, habits, and how you respond to that. In other words, if you get exposed to those environments where you deal with multiple cultures, as I said earlier, educate yourself, do your homework, get to know these cultures, and read up on it, become familiar with those. Because that will explain a lot why other people, from different cultures behave a certain way, say certain things, come across a certain way. Also, for the story you shared earlier. And it all comes down to, again, that self-awareness, how you respond to those different habits and behaviors from these different cultures. Last word of advice, of course, educate yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mart. And Ket, if you'd like to add a final comment.
It was just that you've just reminded me of that wonderful word, curiosity, right? Like when we see difference, be curious, don't be fearful. Just thank you. That last comment to close us out made me just think of that word, curiosity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your answers today, panelists. And I would like to thank our producers for the excellent questions today. Great job, and watch out for your name in the credits if your question was selected. Now, panel, it's time for your closing remarks. So I will start with Robert and then I'll work my way around. So Robert, if I could have your closing remarks, please.
I'd like to quickly share 3 of my favorite quotes on leadership. The first, Chris Galvin from the Motorola management, the founders of Motorola. Leadership is taking people elsewhere for their benefit where they might not go on their own. Second quote from my dean at my business school, Deepak Jain. Success is defined not by what you have achieved, but by what you have helped others achieve. And the final quote I'd like to share is from Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook fame. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. Thanks, Shanice.
Fantastic quotes. Thank you so much, Robert, and thank you for your excellent answers today. Ket?
Yeah, I want to first start by saying I think I want to dispel the idea that there are certain people are leaders. We all have the potential to be leaders. And so to be authentic as well in that position is to create an environment where others are successful. So being authentic might mean we show parts of ourselves that perhaps other people don't like, and we have to consider what impact that has on the environment around us that we create. I think we're all potentially leaders, but we also have to kind of work hard around this self-awareness piece and understand the impact we have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the panel today. Eileen?
I think there is a cost to being an authentic leader. There are certain situations where doing what's right and doing what you feel you need to in certain situations can sometimes set you back. It may miss out on a promotion, or you may miss out on an opportunity. But working in those situations would not necessarily be good for you and your mental health. So staying true to yourself will win out in the long run.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the panel today. Mart?
If you are a leader or looking to become a leader, then become an authentic leader. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this episode. In other words, in other information-rich episodes, great answers, and also from great questions, of course. To add something to that authentic leadership, a quote from Kevin Cashman, who once said, "Leadership is defined as authentic, transformative energy that adds value to others." I think that's critical.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us again on Level Up, Mart. And Laurie, if you could share your closing remarks, please.
Well, thank you so much. I've just taken so much from everyone else. I guess in wrap-up, it's really taking from what Kate was saying earlier. It's that understanding yourself, which means continuously self-reflecting, giving yourself feedback, getting to understand yourself really well. You can only be authentic once you know who you actually are yourself. And then when you get there, your mask disappears. There's no ego, and it comes down to serving others, exactly as Mart said. So understand yourself and then recognise that you're there to serve others. And if you're doing that, chances are you're an authentic leader.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the panel as well. And I'm going to go to Adriana for her closing remarks. It was a great show today, wasn't it, Adriana?
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot. And I actually learned a lot about leadership today. I would like to add something as well. I think that being an authentic leader is so important. I feel like times have changed and the leadership styles are personally, I think, are much better now. And I think it's really important because you need to set an example. And me personally, I've had the best example with Shanice. So I know that when it's my time to be a manager, I'm going to be a great manager because I learn from the best.
Oh, thank you so much. And it was a great show today. So thank you. And well done, everyone. And over on our website, you can search for answers to 2,000 questions, a free resource connecting you with experts from all around the world. Don't forget, we also have a podcast for Level Up Your Career. So you can head over to your preferred podcast platform and search Level Up Your Career, and you'll find over 200 episodes there. We have some fantastic events coming up over the next few weeks. On Monday, the 4th of December, my esteemed colleague Nick will be discussing how to become an Agile change agent. And on Friday, the 8th of December, you'll be joined by me again to discuss how to facilitate like a pro. And then on Monday, the 11th of December, we'll be back with Nick again for our incredible Christmas special. So don't forget to sign up, and you will receive a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on the next show.